So, welcome to this Generations project. It's going to involve an opening today, and just to introduce the project and get used to us as we get used to working online. Delighted that Carol Johnson, Councillor Carol Johnson, the Deputy Lord Mayor herself, will be joining us for a short while today. Later on in the project, she'll be delivering her own personal story. It's going to come from me today to give some background context. But it's great that she's joining us today, and especially with her expertise and experience. It's been, and also even better, because as we've planned, is that she's an ex-UWE alumni, but she's been very helpful in her kindness and time in delivering that. And thanks to many of you who've joined today, including Mandy and Bancroft, who's brought Alicia and I together, and all the efforts of the students. Yes. So, what about the people who will bring this project today? Obviously, there's me. Behind me there's a team of Creative Connect, and they're all University of West of England Bristol students or ex alumni as well. There's just two of them there, and Ben, who's made some great videos. We're making a great video for next year, and Millie, who's been helping me in organising, got Izzy as well. But we've got two, as I said, worked hand in glove on this for a long while with Alicia, and we're glad to see this come to fruition. And Mian, who's joined us, but no less important in terms of getting the students together. Really appreciated her insights and her support during that. So if you can both introduce yourself, please.
I'll go first. Hi everyone, I'm Alicia Ari. I'm the BAME project coordinator at UWE. Like Roger said, I'm really happy to see this project coming off its feet. It's taken a while in the planning. It's been something that's really passionate to my heart in terms of obviously being part of the Windrush legacy and generations, and my nan coming over during the Windrush. So I'm really happy to see that we've actually got something going and everyone's in the room.
Hi everyone, I'm Mian Ng. I'm the Associate Head of Department for the School of Art and Design. My role in this project is to gather students who could use the series of talks in Windrush project to embed into their teaching and learning, especially in creative projects from the school. And
that's
sorry, I'm very grateful to be on board with the team. It's also an area which is very close to my heart. Thank you.
Oh, and thank you again. It's amazing how it's all coming together, and that's a good lesson just in terms of just bringing things together and ideas and making things come together. And again, we're delighted that we've got the support of our university as part of our diversity and inclusion and real equity and equality. This community learning project, we hope, will make a big difference to people's studies and education, because that's how I started as well, through these community learning projects. I'm going to go on to explain a little bit about the project and about what Windrush is and stuff. I'm delighted for our opening event to be joined by the Deputy Lord Mayor of Bristol, a woman I've got a lot of time for over the years. You'll just see her in the middle there, in her bright orange. Normally, though, it's fiery red of her party, but when she becomes Lord Mayor, that'll be that all political denominations will go aside. But we don't back parties; we back people, and it's been brilliant working with her. She's as well, and she's also part of the Windrush Commission from the Home Office. Again, putting her party loyalties aside for the goodwill of the people. So she's just going to give a brief overview of herself, the interest of the project that she's working in, and what the Windrush means to her. Thank you for joining us. I know you've had a busy day and a long meeting and a diary clash. So please continue, Carol.
Yes, that's one of my that's my everyday life at the moment, Roger. Thank you very much for having me. I'm really delighted to be here. As you said, I am the current Deputy Lord Mayor for Bristol City Council. I'm also Deputy Cabinet Member for Equality public communities and public health, and also the Deputy Bench Chair for all magistrates across the Southwest region. In addition to that, I've just taken on a temporary role as ambassador for Windrush, which is via the Home Office. And I'll say a little bit more about that in a moment. But one of my favourite titles that I do hold is that I am an alumni, if that's how you say it, from UWE of many years. I've done many courses there, and I'm absolutely delighted to be asked to talk with you today about Windrush. My interest in Windrush is a very personal one. Both my parents came to this country from Jamaica and are, you know, affectionately known as part of the Windrush Generation. Fortunately for my parents, they both managed to get their papers, and so we didn't see or have the difficulties that we have seen in thousands who have suffered as part of that generation, who were not able to prove or find or locate their documentation. And this is why this scheme that I'm part of is so very important. I don't know how you feel about this, but for me, it is a right for the Windrush generation to be compensated, to be taken care of. They were actually invited to this country to come and help and support what they called the mother country, and they were delighted to come here. But unfortunately, when they did get here, the welcome was not what they expected, and instead of a warm embrace, they found that they were facing some extreme hostilities and discrimination on a level that we perhaps don't have to experience in our day-to-day life as in 2020, in the sense that it's not as overt. We know that racism is still there and discrimination is still there. So for me, it's been a very, it's got a very personal connotation to it, especially for the fact that both my parents are now deceased. So this is where, you know, some of that legacy and generational interaction is so very important, because although some of our Windrush generation are not with us anymore, their children are, their grandchildren are, and some of those people are still struggling, still not able to prove their you know, their citizenship here, which is an outrage as far as I am concerned. I think, Roger, am I right that you're actually going to update us a little bit about how the Windrush came about, or do you want me to say a little bit about that?
Yeah, I've got a video and a presentation, but do feel free, you know, take the stage.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the difficulty came about because although the Windrush generation were invited here, you know, extraordinarily, the government of the time destroyed the documentation which showed that they came here legally. So we, after some years of working legitimately, having come by invite, you know, a whole generation found themselves suddenly in a position where they weren't able to produce documents, which then suddenly meant that if they switched jobs, they had no documentation, nobody could provide it. And instead of the government supporting them and saying this, you know, putting their hands up and saying this has been an error on our part, instead they labelled them as being illegally present in the country. And I'm sure, you know, of late you've probably heard of some of the most recent was last week. There was a deportation, you know, of people being sent back to countries that they haven't lived in for decades, which again is very distressing, and it's not on at all. And the current situation is that anyone who came before 1988 it just struggles to be able to provide any of that documentation at all. And as a result of that, I won't get political, Roger, but as a result of that, we have had the Windrush compensation scheme set up. And I'm really passionate about this because the scandal came to light in 2018. That's a long time. You know, my dad came here in 1959. That's a huge amount of time to have been struggling with this kind of thing. Now, the scandal came to light in 2018, and yet since then we've had the Windrush compensation scheme in place, and I'm dreaded to tell you that in that time only 168 people have a compensation, and yet the government have laid aside millions to support those people, and that is why I decided to get involved. And I will let Roger say a bit more about the background now, and perhaps I might say a bit about what we intend to do about it here in the Southwest after that. Roger?
Thank you very much, Carol. Really appreciate that, and thanks for giving that overview and your personal insight as well. And yeah, you're local as well. I know you spent some time in Birmingham during your time. What was it like for you, kind of growing up as a child of Windrush? What does it mean to you?
As I said, it means everything to me now, because both my parents are deceased, and now I have a different understanding about their experiences. And when we spoke personally, one-to-one, Roger, I shared with you some of the experiences that my own mother had when she came to this country that were very discriminatory. And I am so proud of the generation, to be honest with you, the way that they have dealt with it with such dignity and such grace. And even when I've spoken to Roy Hackett, and I've seen interviews with him as well, and yet again they demonstrate this grace, to have lived through it, have dealt with it. And those are key messages that we, as the next generation, can certainly pick up from them and pass on to our generation, our children as well. As I say, for me, it is very personal, because I don't know about you, but if somebody invited me somewhere, anywhere, and treated me that way, I would consider them not very good host. So I think it's time that we tried at least to correct some of the things that have some of the wrongs. I'm struggling. I'm looking for more polite words, but there are some things you just have to say it how it is. It's completely wrong how they were treated, and I would like to see that addressed. We have had apologies, but without backing that up with actions, it's not helpful. So I'd like to see as many people from that generation who have enriched the UK experience so much. I mean, you and I have both worked with the St Paul's Carnival as well, and that gives such opportunity to share our culture. And I always remember Roy Hackett, who's one of the founders, and he said that when they set up the St Paul's Carnival, they set it up because they wanted to share their culture. They wanted to bring some sunshine from the country that they were from into the dark grey streets of the UK, and share their food, their music, their creativity. And that is a rich experience that they brought with them, and a real wealth. So for me, I don't want that to be forgotten, and that needs to be part of the legacy as well. So I'm really glad that your programme has got such a creative edge to it as well.
So that's great. Thank you so much, Carol. That's a great way to introduction and great way to kick off the project. Thanks for helping us to launch it today and giving you a little bit, a taste of your personal story. We look forward to seeing that in full at a later date and hearing more. And thank you to everybody who's joining in. I was going to say tuning in to my broadcast days, but it's great to see some familiar faces from the community. I mean, Gene as well has got his Windrush story. I'll be dialing his up. Look at some on sports and business that he's done. It's great that we've got as part of this project, we'll be launching some bursaries as part of that to help people to study at UWE Bristol, and Myra Evans has been instrumental in bringing that through the Paul Stevenson projects, as well as working with and low participation neighbourhoods as well as part of that as well. So we've got so much to do on this project. It's very exploratory. We've set out a few kind of guidelines. So let me tell you a little bit about what they are. That's the team, as I said. So what we want is community learners and new students, our elders. Sadly, couldn't join us today. I mean, I was on the phone to them today, and still feeling a little bit shy about joining things online. They were due to speak, but later on in the year, when the weather's a bit better and hopefully the vaccines are out, because the morale is low, they'll be able to join us as well. So, as I say, when I mentioned the Creative Connects team, that's all alumni students. They've helped, and they'll be doing the digital marketing. And what we wanted to do is invite students and community members to help celebrate the Windrush Generation in Bristol. We've got so much, as I'm going to cover in my public lecture shortly. This is a joint project working with local community and UWE Bristol, and involves students alongside generations, and that's where the project is. It's through second, third, fourth, and fifth generations of people to give their story. Because it's something I've been working with Mandy and Emmanuel and Alicia. We know that there's great learning within our communities that are there. We know that there are great scholars that are there that just haven't, frankly, been asked. As Carol mentioned about Roy Hackett, when I talked about the Green and Black project, for instance, he says, well, we spoke about racism, and Peaches is on the call today, but no one asked me about my farming roots and what my opinions are on various things. It's always around this particular topic. But we wanted to celebrate this community and also celebrate the achievements and to see where it took us, because I think we just got so many great learning that's there. So we'll have a series of workshops, including a series of mini lectures, starting with me today, and this will be recorded. We're going to get leading artistic and community leaders from Bristol. Carol just mentioned St. Paul's Carnival. We're delighted that Latoya will be one of our first, Latoya McAllister Jones from St. Paul's Carnival as well, and they will give some of the background to the lives of the Bristol Caribbean community in order to highlight and celebrate successes and the challenges, as Carol mentioned, to adapting to life in Britain through the generations. It will culminate in students and community members delivering artistic expressions through stories, research, art, maybe some photographs, some artifacts. Could be some poetry. You might even want to do a film. And we're going to have a celebratory event, even online or fingers crossed in person, on Windrush Day on the 22nd of 2021. And there'll be details about how we sign up. Our next projects are the 19th of January, our two next workshops, and the 9th of February. Look out for further details of those today. So we've got a whole mix of people, both not aware of the Windrush project and people who have got those lived and learned experience. So before I start my public lecture on that, I thought I'd play you this short video. Hope fingers crossed with that. Mary, can you just talk me through what with the video?
No problem at all. I'll tell you what, I'll share it if it's easier. So yeah. Just bear with, yeah.
Okay. It's a short video, and this is produced by myself and Michael Jenkins. He's done the film and making. He hopefully will be one of our keynote speakers. In conjunction with My Future, My Choice, one of our community partners as well. Someone else will be hopefully part of the project, and it's voiced by a community member as well. It really explains the pieces, the project, voiced by Roy Hackett as well, and a certain person who's my mother was the other voice on this. This explains a little bit about the Windrush story. So that was the Windrush Generation. So for those that don't know who I am, I'm the former chair of Juma Radio, community radio station in Bristol. I'm the author of this book, and this is one of the inspirations for today, just in terms of how the Windrush Generations has inspired me. It's inspired my travels, it's inspired my search for identity. When I look at the Sir Steve McQueen and his fantastic opus of his small acts films, you know, what he's tapping into is his heritage, a heritage that he and many of us believe that just hasn't been spoken for. It's only been spoken to. And I covered it from a different angle by looking at further abroad and going to the US and spending time there and bringing some of those issues back. That's how it's inspired me. It might be a different way that it inspires you. It might be a different way in terms of how it fits in with your coursework. It might be a different way of having some conversations with a family member, perhaps, or a relative, or a partner, in terms of what that journey is like, as outlined from Carol, and speaking to our elders, or, as I said, through the generations, as we're going to certainly look at that and ask speakers, not just from the what we call the first generation. That's the first people to arrive on the generation, and remember, from Windrush, and remember that's a collective term that we use to celebrate and venerate our elders. I'm really proud that I'm a UWE Bristol lecturer. I still pinch myself about that, as I'm still in my third year, as I left school without any qualifications. And this is why this project means a lot to me and Alicia, in terms of our heritage now being central to part of our learning and improving Bristol, and alongside me, and in terms of getting that support to get behind us and engage. I'm the CEO of Creative Connects. As well, as I've mentioned about that, it's my team. We do digital marketing, we do consultancy, and that they're all from UWE in terms of their alumni. They're former interns, now they're part of my team and working with me, and been part of some of the digital marketing that's gone out today. I sit on the Arts Council England, and are passionate about arts making a difference. That's why this creative expression is part of that project. It's been great to design it with Alicia, and think about the ways we can people can have their self-expression in any way that you want, in terms of the project. Social activist in terms of changing things for Bristol. We've held city conversations about race in the city, and many more. And I was delighted to become a member of that famous or infamous empire, and I'm happy to talk about that as part of my journey, because that's very much a part of who I am when I looked into my heritage. So this is my own personal story, and this is but also given a little background into the Windrush legacy. A little bit about Juma for people who don't know. We won several awards, and really arts and culture was at the center of what we helped to deliver, and giving people voice and an agency. So in this, in my generation's story, it tells the tale of indigenous people. I'm going to cover the transatlantic slave trade, and look at that word of empire and commonwealth, and what it and its origins. How I look through it through my Caribbean and US and what I call the African Diaspora, the Black Atlantic, if you like. The arrival, which you've seen, or about my parents and conditions then. How that's given me personal empowerment, as well as the stories in terms of its personal empowerment. We also got lots of different things to celebrate. We've got the Windrush scandal as well as another sideline and story, which you've heard through Carol outline, and some of the contemporary issues as well, and also that contribution to society as well as part of that. So in the beginning, let's talk about the continent of Africa, because growing up in Bristol and Britain, and born in London, I was told very little about my roots. And when I looked into it, when people were telling me to go home, and much as Trump said to those 4 congresswomen, go back, and that's why I had a real resonance to us, because we grew up with that face to us. But we were born in Britain, so we had this constant conflict and all the time about who we were and where we were from. When I looked into it and looked at from that migration, forced migration, that cost 20 million lives through the transatlantic slave trade. It was to the Caribbean itself. It takes its name from the Caribs, tribe of indigenous fierce warriors, along with the Arawaks and Taínos and other tribes of native of the Americas, going up through from Canada through the US into South, right down into the South America, and including those chain of islands as well. And from that, the Caribbean was born from, or the West Indies, as the colonial name is termed. So valuable to Britain back then, in terms of its that it lost the war of the US independence, but it wasn't even that bothered, because it had the West Indies right on its doorstep, and from its gold and from its enslaved labor that had been taken across from ships that sailed out of Bristol, that went to Liverpool, and went from Liverpool and London, and the cotton mills that churned from Manchester, the financial institutions also in places like London as well, and the armaments that were made from Birmingham. Then I began to discover just how much of that empire and that wealth that Britain had gained from that. And that transatlantic slave trade, that's what TAS stands for in this in this case. And those cotton fields, those sugarcane fields. Sugarcane fields in my story comes from Demerara, and that's where Guyana, because that's my parents were from, and my mother and father walked to school alongside cane fields that their ancestors had toiled in day and night, cutting sugarcane, thick sugarcane. If you have one of those sugarcanes, you realize how thick that is, and it's hot. And that was all free enslaved labor that Britain made its trade on, coming from ships not far from us here in Bristol, that sailed across with guns and cotton goods to Africa, that itself was unloaded and stripped down, and then sailed back across the Atlantic with its people, enslaved people that were caught in Africa, and places like they used to name them after the produce, Guinea Coast. The money, the Slave Coast, Gold Coast as well. All these names from West Africa, and the tribes then were mixed up in that terms, and taken both to the Caribbean, but also to North America as well, through Canada and the 13 colonies of the US. So growing up in Bristol, I didn't see this in any of the books that I'd seen. I left school without qualifications, turfed out at 15, feeling quite angry with the world. A lot of in the 1980s, a lot of violence that was around, being chased by skinheads. We've seen, as I said, if you saw the film Alex Weedle, you would see some of the conditions that were around then for young black men and women as well. But huge unemployment, 50% unemployment during that time. And then, looking around me, looking at the statue of the then standing Colston, and one of the godfathers of slavery, in my opinion. But then also looking at and this is where history come in. I hated history at school, but when I started up having to really understand my roots and understand exactly, you know, where I come from, the city that I'd surrounded in. It wasn't that easy or simple, just around saying, yeah, well, you know, everybody around them was bad, because we had abolitionists there who boycotted sugar. Who paid for the freedom of Frederick Douglass, invited him to the city to speak, who spoke up. He spoke up and down Britain and Ireland as well. And so we have the abolitionists, you know, who can latter day we can criticize for this slowly trying to think that slavery was going to eradicate itself. But we also had the merchants and the slavers, and that merchant's title still stands in the city today. The story of transatlantic slave trade 3 is rebellion and resistance. I mentioned earlier the abolitionists, and we pay tribute to them, the Quaker resistance that was there both here and in America, but also taken out of the story when slavery ended 1807 over here, 1808. In the US, that was a transatlantic slave trade that was ended, but it still continued in the Caribbean. Still, riches were taken, and it was only rebellion through the arms of black men and women. Let's not forget Nanny Maroon, Toussaint Louverture led the way in Haiti, and then during the 1810s in Quamina and Guyana, in Bussa in 1820s, and finally Sam Sharp made it economically unviable to continue the transatlantic slave trade. In America, though, it still continued. In fact, it continued far worse with their internal markets, which became the Deep South. And the empire did strike back. When we talk about reparations today, a key issue, when we talk about the unfairness and inequalities of the world, and where this money had come through the Caribbean and where it went. David Olusoga, again, of this great city of ours, also a doctorate at UWE, now at Manchester University, still doing great things, including interviewing the president, Lucky Man. Did a fantastic research study with University of London, College of London. And the empire certainly strike back. In 2016, the HM Treasury put out a tweet that the reparations, in fact, didn't go to those who toiled the land, didn't go to their descendants, didn't go to any of those countries. It went to the very same people who were delivering that misery, who were delivering who enslaved those people. And it's taken us, you and I, that is, as taxpayers, of a couple of hundred years to help pay that out. Billions of pounds we're talking about here. So again, when we talk about inequality and we're talking about international aid budgets, I know I asked Carol not to get political, but I have to kind of look at some of these imbalances and inequalities and see where they've come from, and because this is like getting a head start. Imagine the biggest thing that we can have. I'm very privileged to be talking to you from my own home. The biggest privilege that we can have is that I own my own home, that I can borrow money on that, I can start businesses on that. I got a certain amount of cachet. None of that was given to those left to tour those cotton fields. It was given to those people who made their head starts, and also places like Lloyd's London and many more, including universities as well. And what Colston has done in terms of Bristol Vic and the merchants' money that went through there. So when we talk about reparations, it doesn't have to be checks out to individual people. There's help and things that were done, just knowing and recognizing that privilege and people got head starts. Let's skip forward a bit now to my parents' generation and some of the push and pull factors before then, before my father came then. So when we talk about empire and we talk about Commonwealth and war, we think of war being and it is a terrible thing. When we're up against people like Hitler and people trying to exterminating 6 million Jews and disabled people and black people as well, including trade unionists as part of that. The call went out. It went out not only through the Caribbean, it went out through Asia, it went out through Africa, through that. And that was one of the pull factors. They came to Bristol as well. American troops were stationed here. And they thought they had their own freedom. They had more freedom here than they did back home because they were still subject to Jim Crow laws. So all these There's no these boundaries, and as I kind of looked into this myself, I looked at these identities that were within me. I was born in Britain, but there was, but you know, when I got home, I had Caribbean roots firmly. But it's my food, the way I was brought up, the discipline, and all the rest of it is firmly Caribbean. But so that gave me two identities, and looked at Frantz Fanon. We look at C.L.R. James. When you look at William E. Du Bois and our own Paul Gilroy as well, and Ain't No Black and Union Jack. You just see this double consciousness that you can have these two identities through them. It's helped me a lot in forming some of the history that went behind me. We've talked about the Exodus, movement of the people, is from Bob Marley's record. Another, again, his own words, a third world superstar, but not someone else has come out who came to London, spent time during the late 70s, played football here, was in hiding and recovery from being shot in Jamaica, again, because Brixton was a great community for him, found his home there. So for all the conflicts, we've always managed in Britain, in Brixton, in Toxteth, and many others to find out and carve out our own communities. So over we came, and as Roy as said in the video, no Irish, no blacks, no dogs was the arrival. The part of the resource pack that we will put out will have background to things of housing, of trying to get a job. My dad had start right at the bottom, just like the Drake record, indeed. And he started at London Underground. We look at our NHS, and some of our black elders who will be joining us went many years in nursing, including, again, ironically, right up at Glenside. And we're great that we've at UWE have given tribute to them through the work of the Alicia and Mandy and many of the team even before then, and some great pioneers. Let's look at some of those communities that I just touched upon briefly. I talked about Brixton, Handsworth, Moss Side, Chapeltown, St Anne, St Paul's in Bristol, but also existing communities, Butetown, Cardiff, and Toxteth, Liverpool. There have been the tributes start with Windrush, but there have been black people here since the days of Roman times, since the Hadrian Wall. In the late 1900s, Butetown and Toxteth had African seamen and merchants there that go back again much in time. And even Paul Stevenson from the Bristol Bus Boycott, we'll cover shortly, was born in the UK. So there always has been a black presence here, either for study or otherwise. And I mentioned earlier about Paul Stevenson, there, his wife Joyce as well, and you know, a great contribution to our nursing community. And that will be one of the key lectures as well from the community. Lectures will be around nursing in the present day. But at the same year, 1948, that NHS started. No coincidence. A man who was out there recruiting, not just in the Caribbean, but in Asia and Africa, getting more resources. Enoch Powell, who later, 20 years later, then went on to do the Damning Rivers of Blood speech. And he speaks, my mum today, she would give a shudder from that speech. From the day afterwards, on her ward, she started facing racist abuse on that. That's the impact of these words. And we're still seeing that today. If you've seen the video of Anton Ferdinand last week, the impact of those words that were said to him had a damaging effect in his life. That's some of the effects that this racism has on our people, and why it needs to end yesterday. Roy Hackett was a man who came over from Jamaica, sadly left his family behind, never got to see them again. And in future lectures, I will certainly be playing clips from different parts of Windrush Generation. He treasures his British passport to this day, carries it around everywhere with him, and is a great orator. Sadly, he's a bit ill now, but we've got some recordings of him which we're provide online for people to listen into and play during our future lectures. So on a personal level, looking at that Windrush legacy, growing up in London, as I mentioned, and coming over. But my family, when I looked into some of those photographs, no one could be more shocked than me. My mother, there on my maternal side, my uncles who worked on the GPO, was in the swinging 60s, used to connect all the telephone lines for the nightclubs. And my two sisters there, one of them sadly passed away, but handmade dresses as part of that. Gentleman on my right, on the right, is my paternal grandfather, and that stonemason's outfit that he has will tell you what Guyana was like. He never visited here. He was just born in Guyana, technically South America, but would never know what the UK would look like. In fact, he thought that he was contributing to the British society. So indoctrinated were they. Again, my mother will tell you that she didn't know anything about any African kings and queens. They knew more about her own royal family, but know all the names of their children and everything. So that Commonwealth, that link between empire and Britain and where I am now, is still to me part of my own heritage, and why, as I say, I'm more proud for my grandfather to have that MB despite its title, and also if it helps other people and in terms of the work that I do. But most importantly, that lady on the right, who had her face pressed up against the Buckingham Palace and come here with next to nothing, and to have her waltz around like she was walking on air on that day, sadly pieces is left there, was something that I'll never forget. I would never begrudge her. But that's everything for everybody. I understand what Benjamin Zephaniah says. I understand what George the Poet says, and I totally get that. It's an individual choice from that in terms of empire. I'm going to use it as a force of good to change things, as opposed to looking back into the past. That's my personal view. Because when I grew up, that was my school, and there's Avonmouth, not far, where 4 people were killed just last week. That was my school that I grew up with. Cannon fodder, really factory fodder for the local comprehensive. We were 5-6 miles away from what was then Polytechnic, 5-6 miles away from the University of Bristol. No one in my class spoke about university. No teacher spoke to me about university. None of my family went to a university. None of my friends went to a university. Sadly, Xavier's left us in a kind of similar experience. But that was what we were growing up, and it's those type of opportunities that we want to give to the next generations, both through whether it's through our bursaries or the work that we do now. My generation was very different. 1980, as we've seen, we had on the left, you'll see the St. Paul's riot a year before I left school. The same year I left school, in January 1981, we had the New Cross fire, 13 dead, nothing said. And these were part of the early roots of my activism. These were part of when I saw people rising up and not having enough, and suddenly decided, especially when I got arrested for doing nothing, face down on the pavement, special patrol group, sus laws, all those things that went through there. Not only that, through the 80s, as I discovered that later, activism was all around me. People go far and wide about the Extinction Rebellion. Well, the women of Green and Common were doing those types of things in the early 80s, organizing themselves. We had the miners' strike as well, sadly. We had the poll tax riots, and then inner city riots or uprisings, depending on your choice of view, right the way through in all of those inner city places. Handsworth, Toxteth, St. Paul's, and many, many more, Brixton and Broadwater Farm. This was a rebellion. It was a part of a generation who'd had enough and didn't look so deferentially towards the police and other authorities. So my identity then, being told and taught to go out, came through somebody who I say who claims we're claiming him because he has Caribbean roots in Grenada. His mother is half Grenadian as well, and is very much, in all seriousness, an internationalist. And it was Malcolm X. Now, I didn't agree with what Malcolm X's all of his views and policies, but I agreed with his passion. I also agreed that how he spoke, as he speaks to a lot of black men from a personal experience, the fact of redemption, the fact that you can use the power of education to really do something with your life. He read and studied books famously in prison and turned his life around, becoming one of our leading activists. And that led me into really opening up that though I left school without any qualifications, that my life wasn't over, and I was going to be condemned to a life in the factories. I studied more in America, and I went to places in the Deep South, and I also looked into my family and people who were living in America. The gentleman on my left was my mother's brother, just celebrated his 90th birthday. He was the first bishop of Connecticut, first black bishop of Connecticut, I should say. He met Dr. King during his life. My friend moved to America and met her Jamaican husband there, and they had their baby Olivia on a very special day. It was the day of the inauguration of the first black president of the United States, a day I'd never thought I'd see. I'll leave aside the political side. I've argued with many UWE students about the politics, and delighted to, maybe on a separate lecture. But it was a social significance of that. It's a social significance of seeing a black man at the helm of the most powerful country in the world that I had to see from my own eyes. And I was there on that famous day. And also, when I see within America, when I see the things that are there, and I look to them, because we didn't have the role models that we have now. We didn't have people in my positions and other positions now that were, whether famous or anywhere else. Stokely Carmichael, when I became part of the Black Panthers, started the Black Power movement. From music, Cool Herc from Jamaica, Grace Jones also from Jamaica, Barbadian Eric Holder, Sidney Potts from the Bahamas, Marcus Garvey as well, and we've got Carmela with her Indian and Jamaican descent, and of course we're going to claim Alexander Hamilton, also out of Grenada. Keeping on with that American theme, because this is where when I say about history later in life, don't have to always do things at school, always do things through the university. When we looked into it, I realized that in my own city there were great people as well, and great history that was here, and that was the Bristol bus boycott. I mentioned Roy Hackett earlier. I mentioned his wife Joyce as well, but we had the Bristol bus boycott here. The Bristol bus boycott was fundamental in the rights of black people in the UK, striking in terms of boycotting the buses and disrupting a practice that was part of the colour bar as well. Amazingly, that speech took place on the 28th of August. I have a stream that you can remember. You can close your eyes now and think to hear the words of one of the greatest orators who I travelled through and studied his work, because I couldn't believe about this a non-violent study that took place. Well, that took place the same day as the Bristol bus boycott had ended, and they used the same techniques from Rosa Parks in 1955 in terms of boycotting the buses, organising it. Students, like many of you on this call, took part in within that. And what did it achieve? So we bring those issues home from the Caribbean, we bring them home from Africa, we bring them home from across the world and the US. They brought those techniques here. We had the Race Relations Act of 1965. We had the Race Relations Act improved in terms of housing and discrimination in 68. Paul's gone on to create great accolades, but what it's done fundamentally in this country, one of the key tenets of equality. If you're looking at equality and equity and inclusion, diversity, all of those words, you kind of need to go back to the beginning of Paul Stevenson's struggle, back to the beginning of Tony Benn, who not only just put those great words in, worked in unity, talking about proper allies, worked in terms of putting that into legislation to make things better for many different other equalities groups. Look at the Disability Act, look at the Equal Rights Act for gender and equal pay, all of those, Disability Act, LGBT, the Religion, 2010 Equity Act, all of those things got their roots and tenets from those racial relations acts, and itself learning again from the US. Paul has set up the Bristol Legacy Commission here, and again made education a key part of his tenet. We're delighted to be launching his bursary as part of this a great project that we're running, and importantly challenging the curriculum as well. So my life today, I went from through the power of education and lifelong learning, through finding out my own Windrush heritage and finding out where that took me into my leadership role at GEMA. I got to meet Dr. King's son, as that's in there, but also inspire many other people within Bristol. I'm working through at GEMA. That's a broadcaster and consultant and lecturing as I am today. I did a 18-year career at within housing, starting as a trainee within Seed, another plank of great a step ladder for me and many others, and again like paying that back in terms of making that opportunity for others. And that's what inspired me to do, write a book in terms of the Windrush story. I took that from the Windrush, from my parents' journey over here, right to being there on that day when baby Olivia was born and Barack Obama gave that speech to the White House. It was just too much of a coincidence, and it inspired me not only in my learning, my writing. I've gone on to do a play about Obama, which hopefully I get to work on next year, but also my education. And look where I've ended up now, speaking to you as part of working on special projects with many fantastic academics and students and people, as well as teaching and continuing my learning as well. But that's my story. Your story might involve, as Carol mentioned earlier, the Windrush scandal could be something that you might want to look into. It could be an article that you might want to have. You might want to look up some people who are engaged and involved in the Windrush scandal. There, you've got Carol on hand in terms of looking at the injustice and the fun that's there. What are the stories behind that, for instance? People have been forced and repatriated to go back home. A couple of really good programs that have been on that. It might be the contribution of the Windrush generation, my generation, our generation as well. That was in politics from Diane Abbott, great writers, as I mentioned, such as Benjamin Zephaniah and many more. The Stories of Lovers Rock, which is Janet Kay. That was right here in the UK. That music didn't exist anywhere else. We had the soft, soulful melodies along with thumping reggae beats. As mentioned in the film, where would we be without sport? Well, I can tell you, England in particular and Great Britain would have to give back a lot of those medals. Indeed. Jason Robinson, Rugby World Cup. His father's from Jamaica. Jofra Archer, Barbados, Jamaica born as well. Our own Linford Christie there, and many more, including people like Lenny Henry, football indeed from Raheem Sterling, and Marcus Rashford, Lewis Hamilton. The list is endless, and obviously in our literary field there from soul to soul. Let's go into music. Let's think about Banksy. Well, Banksy he's not painting any Rembrandt. That's come out of US street art that he's done, and got helped about the Wild Bunch and from the Massacre Attack. Their fathers were sound system men. Again, go along to some of the films that have been done by Sir Steve McQueen, and you'll see some of the great history in terms of those sound systems and how much of a part of our culture that was there. All those parties that you enjoy, in fact, probably why you're here for those parties for when you signed up for COVID. It has its roots in that, including we owe them too in terms of Ajima Radio, in terms of the pirate music scene that was here, Emergency, FTP, and many more that we stand in their footsteps in terms of assisting us along the line in terms of what we did. So Bristol today, delighted that to work with Bristol Post as it was then, now Bristol Live, Bristol Vic, and Ajima, and we had a series of conversations about race in the city. Out of that was the One Bristol curriculum. They've got a big event on Thursday, I do believe, and part of their recommendation was to create a more inclusive curriculum. Again, we can't just go to the marching is great. The online stuff is great, but it needs to be in 101,000 different accents in terms of making true race equality. And it's delighted that the One Bristol curriculum is taken forward, and I'll be joining them in their future work. Another aspect, and I've referenced Steve McQueen quite a lot today, and I will continue to do so. His final film and his fantastic opus is education. And in so many ways, and reading that, he's dyslexic, Steve McQueen. Think of it, Turner Prize winner, an Oscar winner, is actually a dyslexic individual. He was put in remedial classes back in his day, and that was happening to a lot of us. I was always, I was gifted in primary school, got to senior school, nothing. And then I left with qualifications. Why is that happening? Why is it continuing to happen? Why are our young girls being sent home because their hair is happening to be in a twist, and it's part of their culture, or it's too long for our men, or sorry, our young boys? What is happening in our senior schools? So David Lammy's done a lot of research into that. There are Runnymede Trust reports there, and people talk about, yeah, we need some more reports. You don't need any more reports. Runnymede, McPherson, Scarman reports, Race Relations Act. There have been enough reports on this. What we need is action. Again, another line of inquiry as part of this Windrush Generations project, perhaps. And today's legacy, it still goes forward. Finally, and it's venerated within the city. We have a plaque in the Bristol bus station as well. The Colston statue has been removed, albeit briefly, and the Jen Reid statue has taken its place. Another lady from the Windrush Generation as well. Within Bristol, particularly, as well as Britain, arts and culture and activism are interchangeable. That's how we get to speak, and we do that in a variety of murals that have been done and look great within city, giving great tribute to people like Owen Henry and Barbara Dettering, and many more. So in summary, you have the transatlantic slave trade. I've gone through the role of the empire and Commonwealth, the global diaspora of those Caribbean communities through Jamaica, and those and that celebration from Grenada and all of those countries, even into Asia as well. People came to the Caribbean. We've got all of those communities that are there. Talked about the NHS briefly in Windrush Generations, Windrush Scandal, Black children in education, something that we look at. Can look at Bristol today and the overwhelming contribution to Bristol British society. As part of this, we've got a number of resources that we'll arrange and we'll get to put online. And now a little time for your ideas, suggestions, and questions and answers. Really, that's my personal story and about the Windrush Generation and what it means to me. Fitting in with the project, I hope it has really inspired you to have a think about what you want to do, how it can help your studies, how it can help your future studies, maybe and join when we get other guest speakers to give their testimony and their story in January, right up through the 22nd. We want to range them. Is it a poem? Is it a picture that you want to develop? A piece of research? What is it from your Windrush stories? So your ideas and suggestions. Carol, did you want anything to just add in before we get a few comments from Alicia, please?
Well, yeah, actually, I'm just going to plug my phone in because I don't want it to go off whilst we're talking. But Roger, that was very inspiring, and it's amazing how much you take for granted when it's just your life that you're living. But I was scribbling 100 things down whilst you were talking, and you know, the whole thing about journey. You know, you've talked about a lot of different things there, but I was looking at the picture of the SS White Empire behind you as you spoke about your own personal journey. And of course, that's exactly what our parents have experienced. They've done a massive journey, and it's been different for all of us. And as you were breaking it down at the end, you know, I was making little notes, and wrote things down like scandal, riot, reparation, but then there's so much positivity as well. You know, there's all the contribution that they made with regards to music, to sport, all of that richness, and you know, bringing us to present day, to people like yourself. You know, you've got an MBE now. You know, your mom should be proud. That's amazing, you know. And who would have thought at the beginning of that particular journey that would be part of the journey that you're on? I won't say it's the end, because I'm sure that you've got plenty more books inside of you to come out as well. But it's just incredible. I think we've got Peaches on the line, you know, we've got Marvin in this city. The journey continues, and it shows how much can come out of even very dark and difficult situations. When you're talking about your school experience, I was reflecting myself, because I can remember being sent to my careers teacher when I was 16, and she was not interested in anything that I was thinking at all. And in fact, her parting comment to me was, what's the difference whether you get pregnant at 16 or 18? And that was her parting comment. I have to tell you that the first time that I did go to university, I was 32. So there's also something about our Windrush journey. I think, you know, our parents came here, they had it in mind that perhaps all of these things that we are experiencing now would have happened for them. But despite that it didn't, the fact that they made that journey, it's made it possible for us today. And I think that's a huge thing for us to be positive and very grateful for. So I just wanted to sort of chip in, because you were saying so many different things. And I thought I've got to just mention that we're still on this journey. So with regards to the students who are tuning into today, there's just so much richness here, and I don't know which way you will go with it, but there's certainly lots of different layers for you to choose, whether you look at the positive strands, the not so positive strands, or you do it from an angle of journey, which is still ongoing. I think it's going to be amazing. I'd love to see the results of all of this work that's going to be done.
You certainly will, because you're gonna help have a look at some of the great things that they've going to create afterwards. The chat has been brilliant. Thank you so much, Carol, for that, and thank you for staying on. I know you've been busy today, so I appreciate it. I didn't expect you still to be there, so I went to Alicia first. So sorry for not coming to you first. Alicia, what's your response and additions that you wanted to add in, please?
Oh, my camera's on. Oh, sorry. I think for me, Roger, you know, from the start when we started speaking about this project, it was, like I said at the start, really passionate to my heart. My nan used to tell me a lot of stories about when she came over, and I think it was quite interesting because the stories she would tell me, I don't think necessarily my mum heard. It was when she settled and was in retirement, where she started telling more of her stories about coming over and moving to certain parts in Bristol that actually were seen more prestigious in terms of Eastville. It was not necessarily a place where a number of Black Caribbeans were, and how hard that was for her when she was living there. So I think for me, this year, and particularly losing my nan last year, I realized how much we do stand on the shoulders of giants. They gave us so much in terms of their passion, their experience, their everything that they've given to us. I think we should look at the positives, and I think that's why I was so passionate about doing a project like this for students, because although maybe students do not see some of these role models in universities, because we have a lot of work to do in terms of role models and representation, when we look at Bristol community, we have such a richness in terms of the education that some of our elders have given to us. So I think I really am passionate about connecting our students with the community in this project, because they have so much to give. And I think, Roger, everything you said in your presentation, particularly what Carol just spoke about in terms of education, I hated history. I was supposed to take it as my GCSE, and I actually dropped it because I absolutely hated it. But actually, if I had some of this type of history and understood that actually the stories my nan was telling me and my mum was telling me was part of a history, I found that very encouraging and inspiring. But at the time, it wasn't in the curriculum. So I think we've got so much work to do in terms of bringing this into the curriculum. I have a son who's 14, and I think if he was hearing these stories in school, he would be so much more inspired, engaged in the learning. And I think we need to do more in terms of a university, bringing this into schools, bring this to the community, and really being able to connect up. So I'm really, again, really happy that we're here and that we have this platform to share with each other. Thank you, Roger.
That's wonderful. Thanks so much. And that's great in terms of summarizing and taking things forward. That, you know, connecting community, bringing in into the curriculum. Great that you know, from your 14-year-old son. The fact, interestingly, you didn't hear it from your mother. My mother didn't tell me much either. I got told by either friends or ex-girlfriends who would tell me stuff, and I'm like, well, how come she's never told me that? It's like they're like the mafia, our family, and that's with them, you know, with the age passing of time. We think they wanted to protect us, basically. That's why I've been kind, and because they had such hard circumstances, so that they didn't really tell us. But trust me, when they're asked properly, and we'll get them in later in next year in terms of working with Golden Ages, and delighted that Laura Hamilton, who's a Black Asian minority ethnic worker for the elders, is doing some work herself of another UWE alumni. So it's another fantastic part of that project. Let's go into the chat and see what is being said. I've seen a few great comments. It'd be great to hear from a couple of you. I saw something from, yes, Janelle Bartley. Do you want to talk about the spoken word inspired by your grandma, please? Just say who your grandma is.
Hello, I'm Chanel Bartley. I'm a UWE fine art student doing the foundation year. My grandmother migrated to England over 50 years ago to Southeast London, and I written just a few words. It's very basic, but I thought it would be nice to share because it's on topic. And it is: they came in their outfits, the one better than their Sunday best, with an invitation from England to come help build up the land. Jobs galore, we can all strive. The tale in full belief that it is gold that paves the streets. Unfortunately, reality wasn't so sweet. It were in some sense an invitation to a new form of slavery, a one that you entered willingly, to better the future of the economy. Sharing a room between 5 families in areas that nobody wants to be, slaving away for measly pennies, wondering when they can afford to go home and eat from the land they once ate from for free. Excuse my stuttering. Thank you, that's it.
Wonderful. That's a sound effect. That's wonderful. That's what we're talking about. Nice one, Chanel. That's exactly what we're talking about. Let's get that. That when we're talking about creating great art and having a place for it, about let's inspire from the Windrush Generation. Miss Bartley, take a bow. That was wonderful. That's great. Jean, you want to come in?
Yeah, if I can.
Please.
So I just want to say there's so many common themes. I don't know if I can be heard, but okay, cool. So there are so many common themes in terms of certainly education, and I think, like Roger, I think many of my generation were failed by the education system, and not just the second generation, if you like, Windrush generation, but the first generation were also failed by the institutions. They were let down by the British institutions. But it's so interesting. I left school without any qualifications to speak of. I was very fortunate to be given the opportunity to progress in my factory job and to study part-time at what was then the Polytechnic, where I took a certificate in management, diploma in management, and then eventually a master's in business administration. But I should not have been allowed, in terms of the potential I had and those around me who came from Easton and St. Paul's and went to the same school I went to, I should not have been allowed to leave school without qualifications, when in fact, I could only realize my potential much later in my life when I had children and trying to raise a family and doing part-time study. It was, well, I saw others who were, their potential was wasted because they weren't given the opportunity. Nobody within the school system believed that they could go on and achieve. What I managed to do through the opportunities I was given was to work my way up from the factory floor, to do a management buyout, to become managing director of not just one business, but in fact, in my career, 3 businesses, basically with turnovers of millions of pounds and employing hundreds of people. I owe that, in a sense, in part to my father, who, when I left school, I went to work with him. He'd worked his way up to a manager position in an industrial bakery where he was managing a shift of white working class people from Hartcliffe and Withywood. If you know those areas, you can imagine how difficult it might have been 30 or 40 years ago when he was trying to manage that shift. He quite often on the production line, it would be sabotaged deliberately to see if they could actually get to him. But he managed that, and I watched, because I was fortunate enough to work alongside him for a few years. I watched him manage with dignity and a quiet authority, because he'd also worked his way up. He's done it. He did every job in that industrial bakery, so he knew how to put things right, and they couldn't actually get him to lose control. And eventually I saw the grudging respect that he actually earned from that large white working class factory workers. And that was an inspiration to me. And actually, when I look back, that's where my management training actually started. My persistence, my willingness to do the best I possibly could and not take no for an answer. Outside of work, I've applied the same principles. I started playing my sport late. I played a little bit of football, but badminton was my passion. And it was very difficult playing at a level and then coming in against people who had been coached and practiced. But actually, I stuck at it. I became national champion, Masters national champion, and I then went on to win a European Masters gold medal title. So, you know, and I've tended to try as much as I can to give back to the community. So it meant that I chaired St. Paul's Carnival in 2007. I took on a non-exec director role for United Housing Association, a black-led organization. I sat in, as Roger knows, on the advisory panel for UGMA. And for me, I think what we are meant to do, if we succeed, what we should be doing is we should be reaching out and lifting up with whatever gifts, talents, or experience we can, lift each other up, because we can't we can't just wait for others to give us those opportunities. We have to try and give ourselves and help ourselves to take those opportunities. But thanks, Roger. It's been really great listening to you. My battery is probably about to go on my phone, but yeah, it's great to hear the stories, and it is up to us. We have to keep on pushing, as Curtis Mayfield said, and move on up. I think that's what I would leave you all with. Just keep at it, be persistent, and drive on. But thank you, Roger, for organising this.
Thank you, and this is just a beginning, and again, it's thanks to kind of Alicia, we've been working on as well. But just Mian's added that final bit as well to encourage us and get that student engagement, which has been vital in doing that. But that was lovely to hear that a story again. I know some of it. Jean and I are quite close over the years in various capacities, as he alluded to and hinted at. But I want you guys to hear some of those stories, and that's part of the project, because that's what I mean. That's what I do and get it out in the community and thinking, oh man, that's so inspiring. But nobody knows these stories again. And the refrain that comes back again from my time at Jim is nobody's ever asked me. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to highlight. We are going to celebrate people, Jim. We are going to move on up our community, because these are great stories. And there's a lot of in our city. I love my city, but there's a lot of negativity. And I'm just thinking, just hearing when I first heard your story, and I see you as a accomplished businessman, and you're saying you had the same experience as me, leaving without school, without any qualifications. Look at where both of us have become. What happened if we had that input at that age? And that's why the 14-year-old son of Alicia will need our help and support, so they don't have to go through what we go through. That's been part of that, and be inspired certainly by the poetry and words of others, including Chanel and many others as well. So that was just fantastic as well. Alicia is put into there. Don't forget to fill in our event. In terms of just letting us know and let us know so where we contacting you. We had so many contributions. It's been such a busy year, but it's great that we've actually got started. Mian, did you want any comments, any other contributions, and just talk to your students that you had, please?
Thanks, Roger. Yes, I hope students who are attending this webinar will take inspiration for such amazing stories from everyone who spoke this evening. And myself is very much connected to the Windrush generation, because my parents-in-law come from Jamaica, and they have for many years have told my son, their grandchildren, their stories. And it's so important for these young people to remember their family roots, and also to have that belonging and identity. I think it's important that young people listen to these stories and feel that they are British, young Black British, and they have very strong cultural roots. And I think that belonging, that identity, is the basis for a lot of us kind of recognizing the Black community's contribution to this country. That's how I feel in response to tonight's launch. I hope our students will be definitely respond to the creative work that they can contribute to this project. That would be amazing. Thanks, Roger.
No problem. Thank you for your your commitment from the get-go, really. And I know we've met before, but it's been brilliant just having you along. There's a lot of people who talk about a good talk, but there's very few people who talk and deliver, and Mian has done that. And I knew she had a Caribbean story, so I wanted you to hear that from her words as opposed to me taking the mic all the time. Oh, it's almost like my radio presenting days, speaking into a microphone with nobody else around, but lots of people listening and engaged. It's wonderful, gone far better than I expected. I was a bit nervous doing this online after share with you, but it's actually encouraged more people to join. There's silver linings in every cloud. Is there anybody else that wants to put forward any thoughts or questions, or any ideas about how you're going to form a piece of work? Our next one will be the 19th of January 2021. We'll have St. Paul's Carnival lead, Latoya McAllister, for that one, and we'll have full details for that in the new year. Anybody else that wanted to come forward? Philippa, feel free. Philippa Carr.
Oh, hello.
Hi.
Hello. Hiya. I know you mentioned that you were going to be developing a resource pack, was it, as part of the project? And I don't know if it's because my connection was a bit dodgy, but I was wondering if you could tell us a bit more about that.
Well, yes, of course, Philippa. Great question. I have actually collated quite a lot of information. We've got books. Obviously, I've referenced Small Acts from Steve McQueen. We've got books, films, streams, poems. I've got some background resource pages as well. So this video today, in terms of the initial lecture and all the lectures. So we want a place to host and hold them somewhere. So that's what we mean by our resource pack. We also want to encourage some online resources as well that we'll collate, and where we can collaborate together. Already collaborating with a few of the students on Slate, which which Mian's brought into, and Charlie Long has been brilliant in terms of welcome and create some resources, because that's what we want. That's what we want to create greatness and celebrate. So if we can have a double purpose of helping your studies and advancing your education, as well as getting something out into the public realm, such as Chanel's great poem, well, that's exactly what we're here to do. Is that enough, Philippa? Do you want more?
Sorry, I muted myself so I wouldn't get told off.
I know. Mandy.
Yeah, I don't want to get told off. It's quite stern at the beginning. No, I mean, I'm here because I'm in the psychology department, and yeah, we're kind of interested in Windrush scandal and how that's kind of being accounted for. Just because there's as it said in the presentation, that we've got a group of people, a community of people who have been invited and have contributed, but at the same time, for some reason, these documents have been magically destroyed, and they've been denied their rights, and it's a big social injustice that in some ways we haven't really recognised as a society, if you know what I mean, because it's all dominated by Brexit or whatever else.
Yeah, absolutely, Philippa, and that's there's some interesting topics that you're raising there in terms of the magically destroyed. I hear that quite a lot, and records that have. But working with Michael Jenkins over the years, one of the key things that he said that he wanted to do as a filmmaker, he's done several films, is that there was nothing there. When we look to our Alicia and Jean and my generations from our parents, it was owned by other people. The picture on the front, this picture, I paid £100 for that, 6 years ago. £100 for something that's part of our my own heritage. God knows what a piece of moving film is, because it's not owned by us. And we've got to start creating our own resources and libraries. That's why we want photographs or copies of them, you know, and making sure that history is there. Because I can assure you, from having grown up here, as much as I love the country and Bristol, someone else will end up telling your narrative, unless you've got a firm body of work and a firm body of a story to tell. You'll end up getting told by someone else's tongue. Your parents, your children, even their own experience, even if they're in their 5th or 6th generations now, need to know about their, you know, how their grandparents and great grandparents and their ancestors arrived in the country, and that journey. And that's not just a Black thing. It's not a Caribbean thing. That's a migration thing, a positive story of migration, which underpins all of this work.
Thank you. Oh, sorry. I just wanted to say thank you for organising a really great event. I found it really interesting and really enjoyable.
Thank you, Philip. I appreciate it. Keisha, do you want to come on the mic, or do you want me to read it out? Do we need to bring our own individual project to the table, or is there the opportunity to assist on others? We are open. We are open to whatever you want to do. There's plenty to help. You know, I'm researching my book, and there's you know, getting the resources together, but also if you've got your own a project. I'm never I like people to find their own ways in that old didactic style from that. So it's whatever you feel. If you want to contact me at roger.griffith.uwe.ac.uk, then we can have a further conversation in how best to we can utilize your talents. But you're more than welcome in however you feel fit. Great, thank you, Keisha. Thank you, Alicia. Any more closing?
Mandy put something in the comments also, Mandy Lee, about education again, which I think is really important about this project.
Thank you, Alicia. My white 13-year-old son has been watching with me, like Alicia, as schooling hasn't included this history of stories and journeys like this either. This needs to be the work of all of us, so it'd be great to be part of changing this. Well, I couldn't agree with you more, Mandy. Thank you for sharing that with us. As I said, that's why I say it's my journey. It's our journey. It's not just one individual. But it's a story of Britain, and it's a story when I go into, you know, from, as Jean said, as Alicia said, hated in history, and now I'm a historian because I've learned about my history, and now I can appreciate other parts of history within that. And even if it doesn't look like me, it's not that I'm only looking in. I like the academic rigor of it, but I didn't know that was ever something that was valued, and that's what we need to do with your son, Mandy Lee, and many others, in terms of that's what we mean by being inclusive. I've got things like One Bristol curriculum which can do that. Okay, thank you. Fantastic event. I'm very much looking forward to seeing how this project develops. Well, great. And Sanika, thank you. Loved it. Brilliant from others, and many more. So what we're going to do, hopefully, if you can fill in the forms again before we go, please complete the evaluation form. Want to see how it went today. We start in earnest next year, where we have, and the idea is that, again, just to remind you, it will be shorter lectures. I know we had a longer one because we had my journey, but also just I needed to show you a little bit about the whole Windrush experience and explain it from our context So just to remind you, we want students and community members to work together or alone and celebrate the Windrush Generation in this joint project with UWE Bristol. And the idea is that a series of workshops, I'm going to say the next one, 19th of January 2021, the one after that is 9th of February 2021. Got people like Mike Jenkins, we've got Carol on the call here, should be doing one. I'm hearing Gene, it looks like he's over. I want to hear his story, but we're going to look at nursing as well, and the medical services, and invite key speakers as well. And what we want is an artistic expression from our community members, and give some of the background to the lives of the Caribbean community in order to highlight the successes and challenges of adapting to life in Britain through the generations. It will culminate in students and community members giving artistic expression through stories, research, art, photographs, artifacts, or poetry, or film on a celebration event on the Windrush Day, 22nd of June 2021. So that's the overview of the project. It has been wonderful. Like I say, I was nervous because we're online, and did we get enough stuff out? So it's been great. I want to thank Mary, primarily, just teasing on that, for a fantastic IT, and Mian for bringing her along. I want to thank my project leads, Mian Ning and Alicia Airy. Everybody supported us, people like Mandy Bancroft, who brought Alicia and I together, and Emmanuel, Myra Evans, my boss, Lynn Barlow, just encouraging me to go forth and do as much as I can, Xavier Baker, and having those great discussions and encouraged me. But most of all, I want to thank you today, because you've really inspired me that we're onto something here. Fantastic poems from Chanel, that we're going to have great things and learning. And if we just do the same principles as with my award, if we get a couple of students along who divert their careers from maybe doing something that either they shouldn't, or something they could be doing better, into academic study alongside their earning capacity, then we're onto the right thing, as well as producing some fantastic work. So going forward, that's all from me. I'm going to ask a final word from my co-leads. Mian, Alicia, is there anything that you wanted to add before we close?
Sorry, it takes a while to load the camera. Just want to say thank you to everyone, really. And in the evaluation form, you can leave your email address, so we will keep you updated with all the events and the dates that Roger mentioned. So yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, and for me, thank you so much for attending this. Let's hope this is the beginning of a very interesting journey together, and learn and create, and and let each other know about their heritage and their stories, because we are all connected in some way. Thank you.
Great stuff. All that's left for me is to say thank you very much on behalf of University of West of England, Bristol, Alicia, Mian, and Mary helping us on our IT today, my Creative Connects team, Izzy, Ben, and Millie as well. And thank you all for giving me the inspiration, not only for this project, but that we're going to do something great as part of that. I'll see you next year on the 19th of January 2021. Thank you very much, and do stay in touch. Any other queries, follow me on Twitter, RogerG44, or email me on, as Alicia's put up, roger.griffith.uk. So remember that I'm still part of you guys. That's great stuff. That's all from me. Thank you very much, and good night. And happy Windrush is something worth celebrating. Thank you very much, Carol. I didn't know that you're still there. Any final word from you? Go on.
A quick word from me. I was just looking at a quote that I did as part of my ambassador role, and it's from Nelson Mandela, and he said, "The greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall." And I think, you know, we have had such a journey. There have been some falls, but we have risen every time. And really, it is, somebody said earlier on, it is time for us to help others to rise now as well. So thank you very much for having me, and I'll see you in January.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. Take care, everyone. Thank you.